Hey, this is Aubrey.
This is Marky Mark Markellis.
And this is your boy Joey, and we are from the So Wizard podcast telling you, please don't listen to Pint of Comics. Find something else to do, like giving your goldfish a bath, or washing your hair, or maybe listening to So Wizard podcast.
F dem hoes.
Hi there, I'm Lloyd.
And I'm John, and we're from Pint of Comics. As we dive into your favorite pop culture topics, we may just
Occasionally
use language that could be considered
globaloney.
what? No, I mean,
Foul.
exactly. Offensive.
No doubt. Crass.
You bet your ass.
Sophisticated.
What? No. Anyways, you get it by now. It's mostly just
Gutter talk.
And one more thing. Watch out for spoilers. Sometimes we drop them like trousers. You've been warned.
Listen in.
Some films are destined to be known as pure trash, whether through bad critical reviews, poor audience scores, or even troubled productions. These films live with the brand of being terrible. We here at The Pint know that all of these films cannot be as bad as reputed. Some are actually just so-so, while others are actually pretty good. Our mission? Watch these films and determine if they deserve their legacy of awfulness and report our findings back to you. This is Trash, Tolerable, or Treasure.
Drop your weapon. These plugs are under arrest. This is your final order. That's Judge Dredd. Hey! You want to be afraid of somebody? Be afraid of me.
Got it.
All right, back again. It is Pint of Comics. I'm John, and that is the Manster over on the other side of the Zoom call. Let's get right into it today. Our guest is back from our 1917 Pint Movie Invitational episode. It is Paul. Paul is, I'm just going to put it to you this way. Paul is the co-host of easily, and I'm not saying this because he's here, but the best podcast I listen to. And if you don't listen to it, it's the best podcast you're not listening to. Paul, why don't you tell everybody out there about your show before we jump into other stuff?
That's a hell of an introduction. Thank you, John. I'm blushing, and you just can't see because there's blue coming off my screen, which makes it look very, very different. But no, look, our show, myself and Wayne, we're old buddies. 30 years or so we've been friends, and for the last 6 years we've gotten together once a week and counted down a topic of some description to do with movies, usually, and sometimes television, and we just like to get each other's goat while we do it. We have a lot of fun and swear at each other normally, though this last episode we weren't allowed to swear at each other, and that became very interesting.
I can't wait to hear that one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that myself. Now, speaking of your format, you do the top 10 countdowns, and Manster had told me before, and I kind of almost agree with him because I thought about it when I listened to the episode, that he had a minor complaint about your behavior on a recent episode.
Kind of almost.
Well, yeah.
Fire away,
Manster. What was your problem with Paul?
Oh, my problem with no, it was funny. It was hilarious, actually. It was the Nerdgasm episode, and you were so critical of Wayne's choice of what he considered a nerdgasm. I was getting a real kick out of it, and I was falling on Wayne's side. Yes,
fair enough. Yeah, I think I lost that argument in terms of the listener feedback. So
yeah,
that might have been.
I nerdgasmed over Bullet Time myself.
Fair enough. See, I'm certainly not going to argue with you the way I would argue with Wayne.
I always wonder when I listen to the countdown, and sometimes when you guys do have like your kind of differences, I wonder what the behind the scenes is how tight you guys go over the rules in terms of, because on the I didn't have a problem with the Nerdgasm one so much, but the one that I just listened to, I had to laugh at was the childhood movies that didn't hold up, where Wayne
the movies that didn't hold up.
Unless Wayne is actually 4 years old, some of his movies could not have been from his childhood. Dark Knight Rises, and I thought that was really funny because you didn't even do the vote because you guys kind of had a miscommunication, and that stuff happens. But I think that's endearing. I think that really like kind of puts it out there as well.
That was great. I totally fell on your side, Paul, on that one.
Thank you.
Tenet, come on.
Tenet, yeah. I probably should have made a vote happen in retrospect. I might have won that episode, but yeah, we compete against each other, but it's just for shits and giggles. It doesn't go any further than that.
Yeah,
and
it's great.
Yeah, look, the miscommunications do happen because I just assume he listens back to the show occasionally or follows us on social media where it's all there for everyone to see. But of course he doesn't because he's too busy trying to bang women. So.
Hey, I'm going to say this real quick. When I kind of started getting into the show, at one point, I looked up Wayne, I think, on social media, and I happened to find his like artist page. The dude is an incredible fucking artist. Like incredible. It looks like pen or pencil, like really intricate stuff. Like pass it on, man. That guy is incredible.
I will. On his behalf, thank you. And look, what the irony is that he spends so much time doing other things, including a stupid podcast when he could be concentrating on his art and being really successful. So, I guess I'm thankful that he doesn't. Yeah, but I wish he would because he's amazing.
Yeah, truly amazing. All right. Yeah, now, before we get into the meat of this episode, which this is a triple T, you heard our buddy from the fantastic Nomcast, Andrew, explain what happens. We're going to take a movie that is considered trash and then talk a little bit about its production history. And then we'll go over what we like, dislike, and then we'll each determine whether it is trash, whether it is a tolerable film, or whether it is a treasure to us. Before we do that, though, on the last episode, on the 1917 episode, we did the 5 questions, and one of them involved Australian candies. And the Manster procured myself and him a bar that you claimed was, I think, the best. And we're going to do a quick review and taste test this right now. We've got Violet Crumbles.
Oh, look at that.
Right?
Damn.
We've got a couple of Violet Crumbles
mine's
here.
Backwards.
Yeah, no, mine's backwards too.
Okay.
So first thing I noticed about this thing, it comes in a really shiny purple package, yellow and red. Yeah. Now I was reading, apparently, in the National Basketball League, which I never even knew was a thing, right? There's some league down in the Australia, New Zealand, which again, I never knew this was NBL. The region, which I've never heard of before, is called Oceania. Is that where you live in Oceania? Jesus, I'm learning so much. That there is a team, I guess, that has similar colors, and I guess maybe they're called the Crumbles, or like people call them the Crumbles. Is that true or no?
I don't know off the top of my head a team that's purple and yellow. I mean, it's entirely possible.
Other than the Vikings.
Yeah. Well, it was Wikipedia, so it could have been total bullshit. But first thing I noticed,
the NBL, if I may, the team the team from my city, the Perth Wildcats, have the longest consecutive streak for making playoffs now, I believe, in sporting history.
Oh, really?
Any sport, anywhere in the world, they've made the finals. I think now for coming up on 30 years straight every season.
I did
That's
notice.
Incredible.
I did notice that when I looked up the Wikipedia about the NBL, because it's only like 8 or 9 teams, that Perth was
that helps.
Perth was like the most winningest in terms of like whatever the finals is. I think they had 10 or 11 or something along those lines. Violet Crumble, first thing you notice on it, the slogan, I guess, is it's the way it shatters that matters. And this thing is so fucking proud of being Australian. First of all, it's not just a Violet Crumble. It is Australia's Violet Crumble. Okay. So Snickers doesn't say US Snickers. It just says Snickers. Snickers doesn't really give a shit about being an American candy. Delicious, shattering candy coated honeycomb. And then the other thing I noticed is on the side here, if you already didn't get it from the title, Australia's Violet Crumble, created in Australia in 1913, Australian owned, made in Australia. So if you ever like said to somebody, hey, I love that New Zealand candy Violet Crumble, a bunch of Aussies are going to kick the shit out of you because this is a point of pride. I'm taking it. I don't know, Paul, if you feel ownership over it, but this thing is full on Australian. Now, Lloyd somehow was able to get it. Where did you get this?
All right. So we have a international sort of market nearby me called World Market. Used to be a Sears in Corbin's Corner. Do you have Sears? Or did you have Sears over in Australia? No, I didn't think so. Sears was a pretty big company. They went bankrupt and different places filled in, and it's called World Market. It's basically a catch-all. It's got home goods, it's got food, it's got knickknacks, things like that. And I found this, and I'm like, that's the damn candy bar that we talked about with Paul. I'm going to get some of these. Truth be told, I've already had 2, so this isn't my first time.
Okay. All right. Well,
I'm going to chew mine up.
Doing it again.
I'm very curious as to
all right,
both your reactions.
Pardon any chewing sounds. This is a podcast. I like it. It's the nice chocolate coating, and the inner piece, which I'm going to be honest, it almost feels like you're eating like structurally like a piece of dried up foam of some sort. It's definitely
very crispy.
It's very crispy. It's unlike any
Crunchy.
candy bar I've ever had before in terms of like that center. And yeah, I think it's just honeycomb. I guess I could taste like a little bit of the honey flavor.
Yeah, I could taste that. You know what I like? When you break it off and that part in the middle, you just set it on your tongue and it just sort of melts and kind of settles on your tongue.
That's it.
It gets more addictive the more you eat.
Yeah. Yeah, I told my wife because she loves candy. I told her I'm gonna save half of it for her. But yeah, that is something I'd pick up again. That is very good.
Nice.
That is
You
very
want
good.
some more? I'm your connection. I'll get it.
All
for
right.
you.
Well, the next time we have Paul on, we should get the what was the one that he hated? The cherry crumbles or something?
Cherry ripe is the worst, but the comparison one is crunchy. I don't know if you get crunchies over there.
Nestle Crunch, which might be the same, but
No, it's different. Crunchies are honeycomb as well on the inside with chocolate on the outside, and everyone loves crunchies more, except the select few who go the violet crumble. So,
oh, okay. So violet crumble is kind of considered secondary on the honeycomb.
yeah.
Oh wow. Well, I think it's fantastic. I do. I really
have
enjoy
a
that.
honeycomb genre.
Yeah, I know. we don't have that here. We don't have that here. We just get we get 17 different kinds of M&Ms, but that's really about it.
I may just finish this for breakfast.
Yeah, enjoy.
Because it is very early on a Sunday morning.
It is.
It
Thank
is.
you guys for doing this.
No, this is actually, you get the record for the earliest recording we've ever done. The earliest recording we've ever done.
I'm honored times 2.
So I did have a little bit of a breakfast this morning. I just made myself a quick little instant oatmeal. And as I like to do, I prefer to put one certain thing in my oatmeal. And it has been established that we are a PRP podcast, pro raisin podcast.
Yes.
I want to know your thoughts on raisins, Paul.
Yeah,
Swipe
sure.
right.
Yeah, swipe right for sure.
Excellent.
All right. We have a couple of friends that really don't like raisins, and we're just kind of I here and there taking poll on it. So you're pro raisin. Good. That's one of the things about Australia that I'm fascinated about being a different country is knowing whether are raisins even a snack over there?
Not really. They're more salt. We get sultanas are a bigger thing here than raisins. So they're basically the same thing, but taste a little bit different.
And I guess one more question I'm just curious about. I think I wanted to ask you this last time. Being an Australian, are you a Vegemite guy?
Oh yeah, 100%. Used to chase my brother around the house with it on a piece of bread because he hates it. So.
Okay, so there are. I don't mean to sound stupid, but there are people in Australia that generally you think of it as a food that everybody loves, but it's not necessarily just ingrained.
It's very divisive.
Okay, all right, good. We did 2 years ago, I think, we did a Mad Max review episode of the first Mad Max movie. And I tried to get some Vegemite for us to taste on the show. And it was so fucking expensive, like through every means I could find. I don't know if there's anywhere around here that actually sells it, but everything online was like, a little jar was like $40. So didn't do it.
Really?
Yeah, didn't do it. Yeah, it was crazy. I couldn't find it. So maybe someday.
How much would it cost for me to find it and just send it to you? Can't be that much. Sure.
You know what? I'd pay for that.
Be cheaper.
We would do that.
Yeah.
We would absolutely do that. All right.
All right. We'll hook you up.
Thank you. All right. So the movie we're talking about today, we're kind of on a kick with the triple T's with comic book related films. It's 1995. So got to go back to the Wayback Machine. Judge Dredd. This came out on June 30th, 1995. Filmed between August and November of 94. Now, the first thing I kind of want to gauge on this one, Paul, from you, because me and Lloyd have talked about this. Do you feel like a movie that is an adaptation of a pre-existing thing, a comic book, a TV show, let's say anything along those lines, a novel? Do you think that movie right from the get-go automatically has a tougher life ahead of it because people are going to be more critical because of that? Yes
and no. The yes part is definitely you've got the hardcore fans, the people who expect things to be a certain way. So it's got expectations that it wouldn't otherwise have if it was a new IP. The no part is it's got an inbuilt audience. So it's already got a leg up on something that's brand new. It doesn't have to strive to create that. So it's a bit of, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. You can look at it either negatively or positively.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. And another question, just being, again, in another country, I'm not sure of the popularity. This is from 2000 AD, which is a British comic strip going back to the 70s. Is that popular in Australia, or is that something that you don't really get down there?
Look, it's a strip that's in the paper, or sometimes it's in the paper during the comic section, or at least it was when I was a kid. But did I read it? Did I follow it? Not really. And was it too violent to have the really violent? Yes. So you had to be, I think, a hardcore comic person to have gotten into 2000 AD. I've certainly read some Judge Dredd stuff when I was young and my brief flirtation with sort of comics when I was growing up. But I was more into the sort of side weird character Judge Death, because that used to really like, whoa, that's some cool shit. And Dredd's battles against him or it, if you want to call it that.
All right. So that gives us a little bit of a perspective from Australia and where that stands. This was directed by a guy named Danny Cannon. Danny Cannon probably is best known for some TV stuff. He worked on that shitball Gotham. I watched one episode of that. It's terrible. Nikita, which was the La Femme Nikita reboot they did years ago with the super hot Maggie Q. Maggie Q's legs are literally taller than I am. She's so hot. In terms of films, after he did this, the only film that I think he's probably still, I don't want to say well known for, he did I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. So the Judge Dredd didn't really push him into a stellar career.
I don't think Geostorm did much for him either.
Oh, was he the Geostorm guy?
Yeah, he was a Geostorm guy.
Oh, wow.
It says
I
that
refuse to watch that.
It does say that here on his Wikipedia page. But then you go to the actual Geostorm page, it says Dean Devlin directed it. So I'm confused.
Huh. Interesting. I didn't see the Geostorm stuff myself.
All right.
Maybe that's a Wikipedia.
I guess he was involved in the CSI franchise as well.
Yeah, he did a lot of TV stuff.
Did a lot of that.
The writers of this, John Wagner and Carlos Ezquerra, get character credit. They created Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd, here's a little trivia piece for you, did not come out until 2000 AD. Now, we would say issue in America, but they call them progs over in Britain. Prog 2. They couldn't get the story all together in time for Prog 1. So Judge Dredd's been running from Prog 2. I mean, and this was in 1977, still going on today. And one of the other interesting things about Judge Dredd in the comics is that he ages in real time. So the comics literally go from him being a young man to like he's older now. I think that's an interesting concept. Yeah, they've been aging him as it goes along.
Like the Savage Dragon does.
Yeah, Savage Dragon, same thing. If you've never checked out 2000 AD, if you're a comic fan, Grant Morrison, Mark Millar, Garth Ennis, Brian Bolland, Jock, Steve Dillon, these are all people that went on to do much bigger things that worked on 2000 AD and Judge Dredd at one point. The writers of the movie, and boy, you got some really good
some good credits.
Michael DeLuca. All right. He wrote In the Mouth of Madness, which I saw once in the theaters and fucking hated, but people seem to love that thing. So I'm thinking about revisiting it. It's later John Carpenter, which is just later John Carpenter. I don't know what the fuck happened to him. I watched Ghosts of Mars recently and holy shit. Holy shit. That's a bad movie. Yeah. Straight trash. And he also wrote Freddy's Dead, which is another not great movie.
Is that the Final Nightmare?
Yeah.
No, that was the one before the final.
Well, it's called the Final Nightmare.
I thought it was called the Final Nightmare.
Oh, it is, right? The other one is called the New Nightmare.
Not really actually the final.
Yeah, almost final. So
he also did the short film of The Lawnmower Man based on the actual Stephen King story. You know, not that piece of shit with Pierce Brosnan.
Oh, that was a bad movie. Yeah.
Jeff Fahey. Yep.
Yeah, Jeff Fahey. Yeah. Body parts. Michael DeLuca wrote the story of this. And then the another guy also co-wrote the story, but wrote the screenplay, William Wisher. Now, William Wisher wrote T2.
Yeah.
So this is 4 years after T2. He wrote T2. He also wrote The 13th Warrior, which is, I think, a really good movie that gets slept on. Michael Crichton. It just seems like it. That thing, if you remember when it came out in the theaters, got held like in development hell forever. I think it got filmed like 3 years earlier, never got released, finally got released. So it's one of those films. And Steven D'Souza. Now, Steven D'Souza, Die Hard 2, Commando. Now, this is where you get into other stuff that's not so great. Hudson Hawk, which I can't say isn't great. I've never seen it. The Flintstones.
Not great.
Yeah, The Flintstones is not great. Lara Croft Tomb Raider is one of the Cradle of Life is one of the only movies I can remember in my adult history shutting off after like 8 minutes. I shut it off. I went, no. She was fighting a shark in the beginning, and I just went, no, I don't care. I don't like Angelina Jolie enough to put myself through this.
Running Man. It's another one of his.
Oh, did he do The Running Man as well?
Yep. 48 hours.
Running Man holds up too, by the way. I hadn't seen Running Man in a long time. I watched it about a year ago. Fucking great. Now, I love short story Running Man by Stephen King or Richard Bachman, and it's totally different. And I guess Edgar Wright is attached to direct that next, which I'm
Is he?
super excited about. Yeah, I just read that yesterday. But the movie itself, Richard Dawson, it's crazy fun. So this thing was filmed in Shepperton Studios in England. So let's just kind of get into it. Right off the bat, I think one of the problems people have with this movie, Paul, and let me ask you if you agree with this, and this was also a problem in production, because Stallone, obviously, he's a big star. He comes along with his own ideas. And then you got, Danny Cannon and the writers, and they have their ideas. Danny Cannon and the writers wanted this to be a dark movie, which, Judge Dredd's a dark comic. Dredd,
Absolutely.
the 2012 version, is a dark film. Stallone wanted to meld that with the 90s comic book movie sensibility of there being a touch of, or more than a touch of humor. What do you think of the tone of this film, Paul?
I hate it. I hate the tone of this film. I hate Rob Schneider being the moment Rob Schneider came on, I realized why I haven't watched this film in 26 years. I'm like, oh my God, that's right. This whole, when is Judge Dredd, shits and giggles? And the hilarious thing is the juxtaposition between what's going on with Rob Schneider and what's happening with Stallone and Amanda Sante trying to out-bulge each other's eyes through every bit of acting that they do through this film. It's so genre inappropriately mashed up in my mind. I mean, maybe you guys think differently and really enjoyed the 90s-ness of it.
All right. Well, we'll find out at the end.
We'll get there. Yeah.
Manster, do you feel, as you're watching this, that even if it's just from the source material, and I know you've read some Judge Dredd stuff, do you feel that adding the humor was a smart idea for a movie, or do you think that they should have just kept it a little bit darker?
Well, this movie was mixed up in what it wanted to be, much like what Paul says. I didn't mind the comic relief so much of Rob Schneider, except when it was too much.
So from like minute 2.
There were definite whole segments that were just way too much, but there was some stuff in there with Rob Schneider that I actually kind of enjoyed. So they went too far with it. I think maybe Rob Schneider went too far with it. I'm not really sure if any of this stuff was ad-libbed or if that was all scripted. I think it kind of helps the movie in one way and it hurts it as well.
Hurts it in another. Now, we normally, I kind of started ahead a little bit. Let's go to, before we get into our likes and dislikes, we'll put that one out there. That's a dislike for Paul. And for me, the tone, I went a little backwards. For me, the tone is a little bit off. I enjoy it in the movie itself, but we'll get to that. Let's go to Rotten Tomatoes first, because we like to talk about that. We like to kind of see where this thing landed amongst, because not all the movies we've done that people like in like let's say the movie going community consider trash have a bad Rotten Tomatoes score. We learned that really hard on Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. That thing had a decent Rotten Tomatoes score, and it made a ton of money. But we do like to kind of figure out where these things land. So, Manster, where do we land on the Rotten Tomatoes meter?
So on the Rotten Tomato meter, Judge Dredd gets a 20% from the critics, which is below the 60% threshold of, whether it's a good movie or not.
So
considered fresh.
A big green splat.
Right. And the audience score was a bit higher at 30%.
So did you see this in the movie theaters, Paul?
I sure did. Absolutely.
So you do remember going to see this?
Yeah, mid-90s Stallone flick. I was there front and center. Probably not day one, but certainly within the first week or two.
That's fair, because we got to remember, too, this was right after Stallone's, maybe second, real comeback, right? Because, Cliffhanger was the first one that kind of brought his action career into its second phase, right? He did Cliffhanger, he did Demolition Man, and he went on a little bit of a run, because there was a little period of time there, maybe between the last Rocky movie, or Rocky V at the time, and Cliffhanger, where he kind of was experimenting with the comedies, right? He did Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. And what was the other one?
The gangster one.
Oscar,
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he kind of tried to shift gears. Paul, do you think that this was the beginning of the end of Stallone's kind of second action rising? Or do you think that when he came back after this with stuff, say, like Daylight, if you remember that, do you think that did he improve upon it at that point?
I was just going to find his filmography and see what came just after this, but I quite like Daylight, if I'm really brutally honest. Assassins is god-awful.
Oh, it was terrible.
Copland's a really good film, very underrated. Not that many people saw it. So that's not an action film, though. So in terms of what you're saying, probably there's really nothing here that's great until we get, or even reasonable until he dives back into Rocky and Rambo sort of 15 years later almost.
Yeah. He's almost like Travolta. He's like Travolta, where he has like these segments of his career that keep popping in and out. All right, Manster, we talked Rotten Tomatoes a little bit. We also like to talk about what came out around the same time as we talk about the box office, because I think that's true. I think if there's other things,
did we talk budget already?
We did not. What's the budget on this thing?
Oh, okay. Well, you got $85 to $90 million budget, and in the opening weekend, it made 12.3, and for the final box office, domestic 34.6.
Yeah,
so it didn't even come close to making its money back.
No.
Do you have the international box office there, Lloyd?
I didn't get the international on this, no.
So overall, including the 34 domestic, it made 113 worldwide. So that's why we didn't see another Judge Dredd for 17 years.
Yeah, and not just
much
that
superior one.
And not just that, but the 113 worldwide is actually all Britain. It's all the people.
Right.
The people in England were forced to go see it 3 times. Like, it's like, doesn't matter if you like Judge Dredd or not. This is our hero. You know, Judge Dredd is interesting to me because he is a British created hero, you know, but like, and when you think about it, you might not think about this off the top of your head, but he's a British created hero, but he's an American hero. Stories take place in this new America. Yeah. I always found that very interesting, because if you didn't know, you might think, oh, Judge Dredd, he's British. You know, it takes place in England. No, it's a British viewpoint of almost like what they think America was turning into, and what America has not failed to kind of almost turn into. I could see in another couple hundred years, mega cities being a real thing. I hope whenever that starts, I'm long fucking gone. Like, I could see that kind of stuff going on. So I think that's always interesting, that one of Britain's biggest heroes is an American character. Because obviously, I think if you were to talk about Britain's biggest maybe fictional hero, it's James Bond, and James Bond is British. You know, he's essentially the definition of a British character. Yet this one that is this huge, you know, it'd be like if Superman was Russian. It would just kind of be a little odd, you know, that we've been like reading about this Russian character all these years. I always found that interesting.
Oh, it's a really good point. I never stopped to think about that.
Right, I never did either. Never thought of it that way. All right, so you want the weekend that was released. So that was June 30th to July 2nd. Judge Dredd came in right in the middle, number 5 at 12.3 million. So some things that landed a little higher than Judge Dredd that week. Real quick, before you say that is a fucking key right there, that this movie came in at 5 on its first week. Like 5. There's no way the other 4 above this came out the same week. That means movies that were out for 2 weeks and 3 weeks and a month beat this fucking movie. Well, let's see here. At number 4, in its first week of release, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie.
So a 2-year-old franchise at that point, Power Rangers came out in 93. A 2-year-old franchise was able to beat, at that point, an 18-year-old franchise in interest and people going to see it. Now, I get it. The kid aspect drives people in, but seriously, that must have hurt.
Another interesting one, another Triple T episode we did. Batman Forever came in at number 3 in its third week. Terrible. Number 2, movie. Pocahontas. I'll give it that. Number 1 in its first week of release that week, Apollo 13.
Right.
Great movie.
Great movie.
Yeah, I think I saw that in theaters like 3 times. I love that.
So good. I'm going to give you some that Judge Dredd did beat that week. And these are all in its multiple weeks of release. The Amazing Congo came in at number 6. Right behind Judge Dredd.
Amy wants banana. Amy.
We always go there. It did beat out The Bridges of Madison County in its 5th week.
Yeah. That's the only reason. I mean, I've never seen that movie, but I guarantee that movie would have whipped Judge Dredd's ass in week 1.
Yeah. And then I'll give you 2 more. Braveheart in its 6th week, and Die Hard with a Vengeance in its 7th week. All beaten by Judge Dredd.
Yeah, that's only because those things have been out for a while. People had seen them multiple times. Yeah. All right, so that gives us kind of an idea of the grounds that we were in movie-wise in 1995. 95 was a good year for movies. I do remember. Braveheart right there. I mean, no matter what you think of Mel Gibson, that movie is a classic. It's a modern classic. So we kind of have an idea of who wrote this thing. Stallone immediately had problems with the director. I read a little blurb where he said that the director he called him a diminutive guy, and Stallone is like 5'2". So like for him to call him that, he said the guy had like a real attitude and was like bossing around the crew, and people on the crew hated him. Do either of you have it up on there? What did it end up being rated? Was this PG-13 or R?
I think it's R. I don't have the rating, but I thought it was.
Neither do I. I think it'd have to be an R, although it does feel like it's been neutered a bit to try and keep the violence down. Like, there are some moments where it does get violent. You see blood sprays, and there are other bits where it felt like it was begging for a bit more blood spray, and we don't see it. But I'd be very surprised if it wasn't R in the North America.
So I think it did end up being R, but initially when they brought it to the ratings board, it was going to be an NC-17 because there was some severely violent stuff. The scene where Rico murders the reporter, and he shoots him up. I guess you get to see a lot more blood splatter. There's a scene where he tells the robot to pull a guy apart. Yes. He actually does pull a guy apart, and they had to cut that out. But here's another thing of this movie where it's people not being able to get on the same page is Stallone wanted all that violence toned down because he didn't want to just get it to an R. He wanted to get it to a PG-13. Me personally, however I feel about this movie, I think one of the things it does do well is it does convey violence pretty well. I mean, there's some scenes where, people are getting blown away. That scene where the warden gets blown away by those giant guns, it's pretty graphic, I can't imagine this thing at PG-13. I think
it's Judge Dredd. There's no need for it to be PG-13.
Yeah. None at all. So let's get into, we kind of covered what we covered on this thing, but I think the meat of these episodes is what we liked and disliked about these movies. So let's start with Paul. We'll give Paul, even though we already know Paul, how he feels about this kind of. I think we know where he's going with it, but that's fine. But
why that obvious?
Well, what do you got, Lloyd?
Did you want to do cast?
Oh shit, we never did cast. Yes. Yeah, my brain's all fucked up.
Scratch that.
Yeah,
it's 9 o'clock. It's
all right.
It's 9:30 in the morning. I'm sorry.
It is. I honestly feel a little off. I apologize, Paul, if I'm rambling.
Oh, no. Please.
All right. Let's talk about the cast of this thing. I'm doing everything backwards. This is the backwards episode. As we know in Australia, I think that their toilets flush differently than ours. So I think they swirl a different way is what I've heard. So that's what we're doing. We're doing this episode. It's swirling a different way. So let's get into the cast. Let's talk about who's in this movie, and then we'll get into our likes and dislikes.
Well, you got Sylvester Stallone as Judge Joseph Dredd. He's accused of murdering Vardis Hammond, a reporter, due to some DNA being found on the bullets. Then you've got Diane Lane as Judge Barbara Hershey. It would have been really cool if they got Barbara Hershey to play Judge Barbara Hershey.
Wait. Is her name Barbara Hershey?
Barbara Hershey. That's what I get.
Okay.
Yeah. She's a first-year judge, and Sylvester Stallone, the Dredd character, kind of mentors her, sort of,
I'd mentor her too.
I would do that. I'd mentor her.
I'd mentor the shit out of her.
Then you got Armand Assante as Rico, former Judge Rico, as we find out in the movie. He's escaped from prison. He's terrorizing the city, killing judges. He has a secret. That we find later.
Armand Assante has never met a line that he didn't find a way to shout.
What did you guys think of Armand Assante in this?
Well, I mean, I'll get into it a little bit later. I like him in this. I like him in this. I think, you know what? You get a script for something like Judge Dredd. It's probably a paycheck. But you know what? I've seen movies where guys do stuff like, now again, Armand Assante is not a big actor, but you get guys that like just float on it. Okay, I'm just going to go in and do my thing. He's trying to sell that he's a crazy dude. He's trying to sell that he's like a maniac. So I give him credit, and again, I'm not kidding. Every line,
right. The shouting, the bulging eyes.
Yeah, the neck bulging out. And I guess if you're going to go with the weird concept that, now I don't understand cloning, but I would think a clone would look just like Sylvester Stallone. But I guess if you're going with a clone that's not exactly a clone, Armand Assante works. He kind of looks like he might be Stallone-ish a little bit. So he's Stallone adjacent.
Yeah. Was that something that bothered you, Paul? The fact that they were clones, but not identical?
I mean, it's way down the list of things that bothered me, if I'm really honest.
Yeah, it did cross my mind. But like you said, they could pass for brothers.
They're fraternal clones. It's like twins.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, you've got Rob Schneider as Herman Ferguson. He's a computer hacker coming out of jail. He's sentenced by Dredd immediately for 5 more years. he provides a comic relief in this movie, if you can call it that.
Does he?
We got a lot of judges, so I'm not going to name everybody, but there's still a few to go here. There's Jürgen Prochnow as Judge Griffin. He's the judge that's trying to bring back the Janus Project and helps Rico escape. Max von Sydow, or Sydow, I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it, but he's Chief Justice Fargo, Judge Dredd's mentor. He makes a sacrifice in this movie to keep Judge Dredd from being executed. Joanna Miles as Judge Magruder. She is the older female judge. She orders the DNA testing, during the trial to find out that he was in fact had the DNA on the bullets.
And let's remember, during the trial, we find out that he ends up going to Aspen because he broke the law. I am the law.
Yeah. Ryan Mitchell as Vardis Hammond. He's the news reporter. Basically, he's critical of Dredd, but he's murdered to kind of set up the plot.
That's Mitchell Ryan, actually.
What did I say?
Ryan Mitchell.
Did I say it backwards? Well,
Yeah,
I have it written correctly. I just, it's too early. I'm going to blame all of my flaws on just being early in the morning.
He plays the Mini Driver's father in the great Grosse Point Blank, if you've ever seen that.
Oh, yeah, that's a good film.
Yeah.
I'll go to one I like. Scott Wilson as Pa Angel. Scott Wilson, you would know. He was on some other thing we did recently, wasn't he?
Probably. He was in from The Walking Dead.
Yes.
Yeah, Walking Dead, Herschel and The Walking Dead.
And I'm going to give people out there if they've never seen this movie before, I'm going to give them one to check out. He is in a great horror movie called Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
Yes.
If you've never seen that, go fucking get that movie. It's probably 15 years old. It's very low key. I think it's one of those ones I think Paul obviously knows about it. It's presented as a documentary and it is fan-fucking-tastic. Check it out.
And then I'm going to give you two voices. James Earl Jones. He provides a narration to the film's opening text crawl. And Adrienne Barbeau provides the voice of the Hall of Justice Central Computer.
I never knew the Adrienne Barbeau part until right before I watched it. I was doing research and read that. And I purposely tried really hard to hear her. Like if you watch Escape from New York, you know it's Jamie Lee Curtis doing the narration. You know this did not sound like Adrienne Barbeau, but hey, it's cool. It's a cool little trivia fact. All right,
female Hal.
Yeah. I'd rather see Adrienne Barbeau, if you understand what I'm saying, but I'm okay with that.
I think I understand what you're saying.
Swamp Thing affected me on HBO.
Who didn't?
As a child, Swamp Thing, multiple viewings of Swamp Thing on HBO affected me very, very much. So
I had some dirty pillows from Swamp Thing.
There was a couple crusty socks in the hamper that Manster's mother was asking him about. Lloyd, what did you do to this? You don't want to know, Mom. All right. So now we're going to get into, now that we've done everything backwards, we're going to get into our likes and dislikes. And because Paul seems to not care for this movie, we always start with likes. So I'm going to force Paul to give us, we'll do a couple rounds of likes and then we'll do our rounds of dislikes. I'm going to force Paul to tell us right now, give me a like, give me one single like that you actually found in this movie.
Kind of like the comic pages appearing through the opening credits. So I thought, that's a nice touch. We're acknowledging where we've come from here and it set things up. The score through that part, I can't remember if it was Jerry Golds. Oh, no. Who was it? David Arnold. Arnold's supposed by Jerry Goldsmith. It's a really good score. It's appropriately over the top, big drums, big sort of bass. So that worked for me quite well.
Manster, give me a like.
I like that badass ABC Warrior robot.
Yeah.
That was the coolest thing. When I do the art for this, I'm going to draw that. Yeah, that was cool. I definitely want an action figure of that if there exists one.
ABC Warriors is another comic strip in 2008 because 2008 AD is a anthology or has a ton of different things in each issue. ABC Warriors is another comic strip in that. I think I actually have a trade of ABC Warriors somewhere I picked up at New York Comic Con one time, and they exist in the same universe as Judge Dredd. So I thought that was cool that even though necessarily they might not show up in the strip, they put it in there. I agree with you on that one. First of all, I agree with Paul. I love the soundtrack to this. I love the score. I think it's really good. And I love the ABC Warrior. I love the practical effect of the robot and just the voice. I love the
voice was fantastic.
The scene where Rico turns him on and he's asking all the
all you need to do is fucking just plug in two wires. Just one connector. That's
and
it.
ABC robot is easier to hotwire than like a 1976 Chevy Nova. You just 2 wires. Thing shuts and then he's yours. Literally, he imprints on you. But I love that one line where he's asking him, function, bodyguard, Commander Rico, and then he says, "What is it, mission?" And he goes, "We're going to war." And I love it. He goes, "War." I love that. I think that's fucking awesome. Practical effects just get my nipples hard because we don't get it anymore. So just the fact that thing was and also the fact that as cool as he was taken out by fucking Rob Schneider ripping his wiring out.
I'll get to that scene later.
All right. Yeah. So
because that's how you hack things.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Climb on their back and rip wires out of them.
My first like for this movie is, again, whether you like the movie or not, I don't think you could discount the fact that this is a solid cast all the way through. To me, they went out of their way, even small roles, to have people you got Stallone and Diane Lane and Asante. I think they're all good, but you got fucking Max von Sydow. This came across Max von Sydow's desk and he said, "Sure." Jürgen Prochnow, who whenever I see Jürgen Prochnow in anything, he's Austrian. And he always seems to me to be like deflated Arnold Schwarzenegger. And if you pay attention to the way he talks, it's very similar. They're both Austrians, and he's a really good actor. I mean, he's Das fucking Boat. So I mean, this guy's done a lot of great things. Right down to again, Mitchell Ryan is a good character actor. Balthazar Getty, who's been in a ton of stuff, he has nothing to do, but he's got a really tiny role as the young judge, I guess.
Trainee,
the probation judge. You go all the way through, and then even again, if you're gonna have to jam some kind of comic relief into it in 1995, I can't blame them for picking Rob Schneider, because literally I guarantee the list was Rob Schneider, David Spade, Adam Sandler. They were looking at the people that were, probably
it's better than Chris Kattan.
Exactly. They went the right way with that. Like little things. The beginning of the movie, uncredited. James Remar is the warlord of the block, and which is really weird because James Remar a year later was also uncredited in The Phantom as a bad guy in the beginning. So it's like James Remar had this weird career for a very short period of time where he was doing cameos in comic book movies, uncredited. Very, very strange. But yeah, I think the cast is pretty good in this thing. Paul, give us another dig deep. You got to dig deep, Paul.
All right, I'm trying hard here, and I agree. It is a pretty stacked cast, especially when you look at what they went on to do. You didn't even mention Joan Chen, who's got a bit part as one of the sort of villainous people in it too. And I have to apologize. I said it was Jerry Goldsmith. No, he dropped out. It ended up being Alan Silvestri, the man who went on to do, of course, the Avengers Endgame soundtrack and the like, and did Predator a few years before this too. So and Back to the Future. What am I saying? So he's got some good street cred too. All right, I think Max von Sydow is excellent. He just adds an element of gravitas. So sticking with the cast side of things, he was my favorite cast member there, and I legitimately believed he was sad about what his, so to speak, experiment had been, and then he takes the noble decision to cast himself out, and then thankfully winds up at exactly the right place that he needs to be at exactly the right moment in time, and sacrifices himself to save Dredd and, of course, Rob Schneider.
Yeah, I don't think he would sacrifice himself for Rob Schneider at all.
No.
All right, Manster, what do you got?
All right, let's see. I actually kind of liked the story. The whole story, it all made sense. I'm not quite sure the whole Janus Project thing, but I think the story, was engaging. Everything made sense to me, because that's one thing I hate is when I'm watching something and I just don't get why they're doing things. Mm-hmm. So that helped for me. And also I'll give you another one. That mega city, that was fucking mega. That was properly named, and it was all CGI, but it was really impressive to see that city.
Yeah. Well, I'll piggyback off of you for my next is the production design on this thing is awesome. Whether you like the movie or not, the CGI for the time looked pretty good. But then when you get into the practical sets, I mean, pay attention if you're watching it to the background. The way that the storefronts and the city streets looked, not to mention the actual attention to detail on the costumes look great. Gianni Versace designed Judge Dredd's costume. So, you actually have, this incredible fashion designer on the job. I thought the Judge costumes looked pretty great. I thought that the the bikes, the lawgivers and the lawmakers. The gun's awesome. Again, it's awesome.
Cool.
The gun is fucking super. That whole beginning scene, which you know, in any other let's say a real situation, he'd probably only use one kind of round. But the fact that he's going through to show you all the different things he could do. And they repeat that in Dredd 2012 as well, where they show you a lot of the functions. But just the idea that like it could do like a split shot, it could do all these crazy things. And then much like in the comic, if someone who's not a judge touches it, it'll blow your hand off, or in this, it electrocutes you. I think the production design for a movie in 1995, I think a lot of the budget went to that, because I think this looks good. The costumes on the guards, like in the prison with the long capes and everything, it looks fucking pretty epic.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good looking movie.
Yeah, I think it looks great. All right, Paul, we'll go back. We'll go one more for you. Do you have one more like? I want to squeeze one more like out of you, Paul.
Yeah, look, I kind of sandwiched a whole bunch in there when I talked about the opening credits, because the soundtrack. I said the soundtrack's too good for this movie. It's so huge. I just really, really liked it. And okay, so I'll go back to the cast, because my other big like was going to be the gun. That was my favorite scene in the whole film, when he's standing out there and he's rotating through all the different types of shots that he can do, which are all perfectly needed for that exact moment in time. So
yes,
hooray! Who knows? Maybe there were 10 other types of shots he didn't use, or we never got to see in the course of the film. But yeah, I think Diane Lane, as you have alluded, John, is a very attractive woman. And it's kind of odd now, because I'm used to seeing Diane Lane circa 2020.
Yeah.
She's a handsome woman. She's grown up to be a good-looking older woman. And even through, say, Man of Steel and those atrocious DC films or DCEU films. But back then, wow, she was something hot, I'll tell you.
Oh, yeah. She's wicked hot. I was hoping that there would be, rated R. I was hoping there would be a co-ed shower scene. There was not, there was no co-ed shower scenes. I would have taken a little Stallone dong just to see maybe a little bit more Diane Lane, but we did not get that. Maybe that was in the NC-17 version. Maybe that happened.
This wasn't directed by Paul Verhoeven, so you missed that scene.
Right.
Yeah. All right, let's switch over to our dislikes. Manster, why don't you give us a dislike?
Although I did like the costumes, like you said, was it Versace?
Yeah.
Came in to do that. I really, and maybe this harkens back to the comics, but I'm not too sure. I thought all the judge stuff was just too pristine. They showed up and they've got their shiny stuff. There's no dirt, there's no grime, there's nothing anywhere. It looked beautiful, but to me, it's just a gritty, dirty, grimy environment, and it's just. I would have liked it if it was more grungy looking.
Okay, I get that. So you're saying they essentially live in this like giant Mega City 1,
scorched earth, Mega City 1.
Right, Mega City
grimy.
1. For anybody that's ever seen the movie or read the comic, is supposed to be like the entire eastern seaboard of the United States, from like Washington D.C. to like upper New England. And it's all one city. It's not a state. It's a fucking city. So, I mean, if you got to get to like, this block, it could take you 7 hours, and it's dirty, and it's, it's in a future that's dystopian kind of. So, yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know, I've read a good amount of the comics, but I don't know if they've ever gotten into that as to whether the judges are supposed to be looked at as nobody touches them, so they're the only thing that, because if you think about it, the Hall of Justice is like a bastion of, it's very clean, very organized, very neat in the middle of the city that is just a shithole. I'm going to go to one of my dislikes before we get to Paul. I could say right off the bat, one of the things I didn't like about this film was the idea of him taking his helmet off. I know that's a purist thing. I get
100%.
it. I do understand why. I understand to an extent as to, okay, so you've got this star in Sylvester Stallone, and you're going to sell this movie, and you got to have his face on the cover. You got to have his face, on the posters. And if you ever see the posters, there's one that's like his head in the helmet, but the actual poster is no helmet or anything. That's how we look at things. It's kind of unfortunate, because if we didn't look at things like that in America, this movie would have a whole nother life 25 years later, as people going, that's the movie that he never took his helmet off in. You know what I mean? Like, because Karl Urban, again, a much smaller star, never takes his helmet off in Dredd. And again, to get back to why Judge Dredd in 40 plus years of comic strips has never been seen with his helmet off. He's taken his helmet off in the comic strips, but they've never shown his face. This thing, you immediately get his face. He takes his helmet off, and it's this big thing. I would have much rather enjoyed him never taking the helmet off. Now, that being said, I was thinking about this as I was watching it, and I thought the plot in this movie would make it hard for him not to take the helmet off.
Impossible.
He's got to go to jail. Like,
Yep.
What does he staple it to his fucking head? So I guess if you're going to go with this plot, you kind of have to either figure out how to get around it. But I dislike that. I dislike the helmet coming off. I think Judge Dredd is a character known for several things, and one of them is helmet doesn't come off. Paul, what do you got? Dislikes?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there, John, and what's going to be on my list as well. It's just taking a big old square old shit right on the fan base there. Just going, I don't care. Our star, his ego is bigger, and he's too bankable as a face compared to what we're trying to do here. And I just don't think that works personally. Okay, look, where do I start? I've already hammered into him a couple of times, so I may as well continue the Rob Schneider pile-on. But he might be my most hated actor, especially from this era of filmmaking. Every single thing I've seen him in, he fucking sucks. And so I had forgotten, if I'm honest. When it popped up, we had the crawl, which goes forever, by the way. There's another dislike. If you need a crawl that runs that long to set your world up, you're doing fucking something wrong. Do it during the film, for God's sake. But anyway, it's not like Star Wars where it's bang, 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 get into it. This is like, all right, already, come on. Can we get on with the movie? I know you got James Earl Jones, but for fuck's sake, really? And then next thing, it's Rob fucking Schneider gets out of prison, gets on some travel thing to be taken to where he's going to stay. And we keep getting these impressive shots of the landscape and the matte shots mixed in with the CGI, mixed in with the practical kind of models. And it keeps cutting back to his stupid wow face. I'm just like, fucking this movie.
Oh, nice.
All right. Schneider for the loss. Manster, what's your next dislike?
Yeah, I'll piggyback on some Schneider stuff. Most of the bad things in this movie are definitely with Schneider. There's the one where they're escaping in the, I don't know, whatever. Those things were hover bikes or whatever.
Oh.
And he's on the back there. Just every single fucking attempt at humor is terrible with him. I don't know. Those scenes didn't really impress me all that much. It kind of just looked like they had green screen, like some kind of roller coaster, right? And then just you saw the things doing their stuff. And then again with Schneider, with the hacking, he's such a good hacker. And he jumps on the back of the ABC Warrior, and it just looks like some kind of ridiculous cartoon where he's just pulling wires and controlling this thing. I mean, come on. That's just horrible. Give me something at least remotely believable.
All right, I'll double down on Schneider. I agree. Again, as we talked about in the beginning, the tone trying to force the comedy into something that's not necessarily that type of comedy. Like Judge Dredd, the comics do have a air of humor about them, but it's more of a like sad like humor about the state that they're living in and everything, and not so much like Judge Dredd, and Fergie, like Dredd and Fergie. It sounds like a stupid cartoon,
Yeah.
But if I had to pick something, and it only really happens in the end, and that's kind of what bothers me is I think. And again, I think this is indicative of maybe American filmmaking or maybe Hollywood filmmaking, but like there's no fucking reason at the end of this movie to have Hershey and Dredd kiss. Like there's no relationship there other than they're a mentor-mentee. And yes, you do kind of see that maybe she like has maybe an attraction or something. And again, it's Diane Lane, so obviously he would fuck her. I mean, let's not lie about that. But let's not quibble about that. Let's not say, oh, he's not interested. Oh, he's interested. His penis is definitely interested. But like, there's nothing there other than this mentor-mentee relationship. She's there to help him out. And then as the end of this movie to me feels like they filmed 3 different endings and couldn't figure out what to use. And they went, let's go with the happy, everybody cheers for Dredd and they kiss moment. And it's so fucking bad. Like literally so bad. It makes no sense. It's like it just feels like the medal ceremony at the end of Star Wars, although that makes sense. It feels like they felt like we have to have a medal ceremony moment. Oh, Dredd is out. By the way, did anybody notice that when Dredd was out, he killed a bunch of judges? Fuck it. Fuck those guys, like they were going after him. He had to do it. Yay for Dredd. And let's not forget, he's got to get some, he's got to get some now too. Get in there, Hershey. So I don't know. That bothered me. Paul, give us another dislike.
Oh, all right, geez. I'm worried how many rounds we're going to get here. How many more do I get?
We're going to probably just wrap it up after this one.
Seriously? I've only got one more? Jesus.
We'll do two more. We'll do two more.
All right. I've got like 9 more here.
Oh, wow. You can double down on some.
All right. Let's see. How
about this? How about this? We're going to do something special for this episode. Let's give Paul the floor for a minute, and let's give him if this was a lawmaker, let's give him the shot will be called multi-shot. Multi-shot, Paul. You can go through your 9. Go through, because I have a feeling that you're calling in from Australia. We're going to give you your 9 right now. Go through.
No, I won't do all 9. I'll try and cram them together. I feel very indulgent on that level. So, look, as we talked about, and you've already mentioned, 15 minutes in, takes his helmet off. He gets arrested. And of all the judges, he's one of the most celebrated judges in this whole world. Of all the judges, he goes to a first-year judge to represent him at trial. That's an interesting choice by you, Judge Dredd. Well done. Surely you could not have come up with someone a little bit more experienced. Speaking of things that were happening at that point, or just before that point in the film, so Rico escapes because he shoots the warden in the throat. The warden starts trying to gurgle something, and then the guns all swing up and shoot him because they don't recognize his voice. Yet then Rico starts laughing maniacally. How do they recognize his fucking voice? Why don't they just turn around and shoot him as well? End of movie.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
Totally agree with you.
Like, okay, so now I know what kind of film we're in for. Great. Cannibals out in the desert, completely and utterly unnecessary. I don't even know why they're there, given that, apart from shooting down the teleports so they don't get to, the transport ships that don't get to prison. And then somehow the Rob Schneider, buddy cop thing kicks off. And it's just like Stallone can't get out of that mode. That's entirely why Rob Schneider and Fergie exist in this film, because he feels like he has to have someone to bounce off who A, is a shitter actor than he is, which is a big call at that stage in Stallone's career, and B, is even unfunnier than he is when he's trying to be dead straight in this particular film. So it makes him look good. So I get why Stallone insisted upon this, because I'm not sure, I can't tell for sure, but I can't imagine he was as heavy in the early script of this film. I don't know. What else have we got? I had literally Amanda Sante is really going for it. I can't tell if he's good or bad. You guys have said he's good, so I'll let that one be a pro. Let's put it this way. But you did mention the armor, the costuming, which I agree. When it's just the blue suits things, that's pretty cool. But what's with the fucking big yellow gold fucking
the feather plates?
But they wear that in the comics, so it's comic accurate at the very least.
All right, but then make it so it feels like it's actually part of it. It doesn't look like cardboard, because that's exactly what it looks like through the entire bit. And then there's literally a moment where Dredd decides, nah, and he shrugs it off and just throws it to the ground. Like, yeah, unnecessary. That made me laugh a lot as well, and not in a good way. But the thing that really kicked me in the ball several times over was the scene that you were talking about, Lloyd, the bike chase scene with Dredd and Fergie on the back. It feels like they just ran out of money at this point in time. We spent it all on production. Oops, shit. Danny Cannon, he's fumbled the books. The executive producers have been coming to line and kept him in line. And they just went, screw it. We'll just put the shit-ass green screen at the background and just film through that or against that. It is awful, to say nothing of the physics, which are completely defied all forms of.
Yeah, that really stands out.
Oh, it's so bad, that scene.
I got a question about that scene. Maybe one of you guys could clear it up. When they're going through and you see that light gate sort of just kind of like doing this, what is that? Because it just looks like lights to me. And how could that possibly capture a speeding bike?
It couldn't. I think it was meant to be an advert a la like Blade Runner.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was supposed to be like an advertisement. Yeah,
it just didn't work at all.
Yeah, they were definitely trying to lean on a lot of Blade Runner production design, for the city, and I get that. So many movies have tried that, and none of them actually passed the muster. But yeah, that scene, I will go with you on that. That scene's not great. Definitely. It's almost like the book of 90s action movies. You had to have certain beats, and we've got to have the big like chase scene. And also we could do CGI stuff now, or green screen stuff. Let's make it like a fucking through the cities on a floating. They just had to do it. They had to do it. I want to.
Let's hear some more, Paul.
All right. Here we go. I'll make this my last one, but it's a series of them. So let me summarize how fucking ridiculous the latter parts of this film are. 1. They break back into the city, no worries, despite no one ever having survived breaking back into the city that way. And yet Rob Schneider falls over mid-attempt and neither of them die.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Judge security is really good given how easily Dredd sneaks back into the hall of whatever the hell it is. And 3, Rico comes in and kills the entire council, right? except for Jurgen Prochnow, Judge, whatever his name is, Judge Griffin. Then Dredd walks in after Rico's left and says, I'm going to arrest you. It's all your fault. And Griffin puts the gun against his own arm, shoots one bullet, screams, and the entire guards come charging in and find Dredd there. Where were they before? What the fuck? Rico's just walked in and mowed everybody down. No one responds, but one shot through the arm, here they all come. Brilliant. And then despite knowing what he's done, Dredd doesn't just put 15 bullets into him and then run away. He just walks out and leaves him to survive so Rico can kill him later on in the ultimate betrayal. Like, I'm done.
All right. Well, that was Paul from the Countdown. You can find them weekly. Master, do you have anything else? Paul just covered
Come on, no. Paul covered it all.
I'm sorry.
No,
my note was called the Kessel Tube Run in 30 seconds.
I want to piggyback on something Paul said. And although this is comic accurate, it is a comic character, but it's just so ridiculous is that when they do get to the wasteland and the Angel family, the what was it? The boy, whatever they call him, the robot. Mean Machine. How convenient is that his dial is on the front of his fucking head that Dredd could just shut him off? Like, literally, if you can keep within his arm's length of this guy, you could turn him off at any point.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a good design.
It was a good looking design though.
Yeah. Oh, it looks great. He looked great. Again,
he did look good.
Practical makeup, the whole 9 yards. You didn't mention it, but the younger son with the longer hair is what's his name? Spud from Trainspotting.
Ewan Bremer.
Bremer, he's a great character actor. Bremner, yeah. So we've talked about this thing. I can't imagine Paul's going to be a surprise whether he picks trash, tolerable, or treasure. So why don't we usually go with the guest last? Let's go with the guest first on this one because I don't think there's any room for change here. Paul, why is this trash?
I want to apologize for stealing all your thunder there. If you had some great other hates that you wanted to bring up, my apologies. Look, I think everyone's heard enough from me. I think everything the last 10 minutes I just spoke about is why this film is straight trash. Other than the couple of things that you guys said early on and a couple of good actors in this movie, I did not enjoy my time. I can see why it's been 26 years since I visited the film. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to bother again in the next 26.
All right. I'll go before Manster because I think that I don't want to say surprise anybody, but this is a treasure to me. I love Judge Dredd. God. I absolutely love Judge Dredd. I've always loved this movie. I watch it once every couple of years. I just like during COVID when I was doing my Amazon, like buying a bunch of Blu-rays runs, I bought it on Blu-ray. I watched it. I enjoyed it the other night. Yes, I get it. Anybody listening to this, I get that this is not a good movie, but we all have those movies that might not be great that we enjoy. And I enjoy this one. I have fun with it. Now, granted, I would like to do a show eventually on Dredd, the 2012 version.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is a fucking great movie. Period.
Agreed.
Right. I'm gonna spoil that show if we ever do it right now. If we do a review of it, that's a great movie. Okay, it's on a different level. But for what this one does, yes, the Schneider should not be here. Plot, I agree with Lloyd. The plot is easy enough to follow and succinct enough to get us where we have to go. So I appreciate that. But I just like a lot of the action beats. I like a lot of the visual design. I've watched this one a bunch of times. This one's a treasure for me. And let's go to the Manster and see. We've never gotten a 3-way split before. So let's see where the Manster falls. Do you fall trash? Do you fall treasure, or are you going to be the tolerable guy?
All right. Well, let's see. As we've just proven here on Planet Comics, one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Yeah.
I agree. The subject matter, the plot, it's okay for me. I really like the visuals. It's overacted, but not too badly. There's even some parts with Diane Lane that fall flat for me. But it is entertaining in some weird way, which I don't quite get, but I am entertained by it. I'll probably never watch it again, but for me, I fall in the middle. It's tolerable.
Hey!
Oh, the first time we've done this.
First time ever.
All right. Awesome. So we got a trash, a tolerable, and a treasure. Paul, thank you so much for coming on. With the time difference, I know it can be difficult. I know it's getting late for you.
Thank you. Thanks for being up early. I really appreciate it. And really enjoying the show. Thanks. It's great to meet some more people and make some more podcasting friends. And we'll definitely have you guys on our show in the not too distant future, and we'll be the ones up early, and you guys can be out late having some beers.
Sounds good to me.
We appreciate it, Paul. Tell everybody out there where they can find you. And this was not hyperbole earlier. The best podcast, I listened to a handful of podcasts, and there's ones I love, but you guys are definitely you guys feel just professional. I feel like I should be paying to listen to the countdown. So.
Hey, stop it. I agree. You are my most listened to podcast.
Oh, wow. Thank you both. Like, I'm really, it's hard not to sound like you. Oh, hey, thanks. No, I'm genuinely shocked whenever anybody says they listen to the show. So I really appreciate it. Thank you both for that. And you can check us out. If you search for the Countdown Movie and TV Reviews, will come up. We host through Podbean, and on Twitter we're at the Countdown PC, and I tend to be reasonably active on there. So follow us or send me a message there, and we'll go back and forth about the show.
All right. Tell everybody about Pint of Comics, and then get us out of here.
Well, check out our website at pintocomics.com. Subscribe on anywhere you're listening to this podcast right now. Rate us if you want to. We'd love that. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can get podcasts there, special video reviews. And on Facebook and Twitter, you can find us at Pint of Comics, and on Instagram at Pint_O_comics. All right, here we go. Eat recycled food. It's good for the environment and okay for you.
Yeah. Violet crumble for life.
Yes.
See ya.
It's over, Johnny. It's over. Nothing is over. Nothing. You just don't turn it off.